inequality today is the worst. 157 over 157. We're the worst when it comes, if you look at the Oxfam report. In America, 1% of the richest Americans control 37% of their wealth. In China, the richest 1% control 35% of their wealth. In Indonesia, which I'm going to use for example, they control 47%. In Nigeria, the richest 1% control 85% of the wealth. Forbes recently described us as money-losing machine of Africa. Our stock market last year lost 18%. For me, there's three things we need to deal with. And issues that are number one, issue of security. Number two is issue of education. And number three is issue of the economy with emphasis in trying to solve our present under and unemployment. It is very critical. I lived in England for a number of years, and I had a partner, very good man. I'm sure Professor Ludo knows him very well, Mr. Hardin, and he had a fixed deposit in a bank of about £5 million, and I was the chairman of a bank. And I said to him that we're paying him 2%, so it was earning £100,000. And at that time, banks were giving interest of 20-25%. And I went to him and said, Mr. Hardin, since you said you're going to give them additional £1 million, why don't you give it to me so that I can give you maybe 15% more than they pay for this 5? He said to me, okay, we'll go for dinner and talk about it. And he took me to dinner. And when we finished, he told me, said, Peter, let me tell you, peace of mind is included in this 2%. You can keep your thoughts. That he has planned his life. That he has planned his life on this 2%. He doesn't want the 15. I can keep the 15. And that is the foreign investor you want to attract. Because he needs to have peace to enjoy his 1% and everything. And that's it. So it is critical that we know we need to provide security. It's not how much you have, it's what you do with it that counts. Today what you hear is revenue to GDP. Can we talk about cost of governance to GDP? That is the problem. Prophet Soludo has just told you how a governor, the wife had to work for them to be able to buy car. RAV4, yeah. You could see it. That is the situation everywhere. The cost of governance in Nigeria is unacceptable. It's the most expensive anywhere in the world. Just to use another example from the same America to show.
This was Peter Obi's speech that broke the internet. So I want you to take your time, listen to this video, settle down, calm down, listen to this video to the end. The video is long, but you will enjoy it. There's a reason for this video. When you watch it to the end, you see the reason why I am doing this video. It's not just to talk, to make mouth. Action speaks louder, right? So please watch this video and tell me everything said on this video. If all these things has been implemented, will Nigeria be complaining today as the country is failing, the economy is failing, insecurity, hardship, poverty? If everything is said, definitely, if this man has been given opportunity since 2 years ago when they stole his mandate, everything you see on this video, these are the area he would have focused on, and then we could have seen the result of what he said on this video. That's why I said take your time, listen to this video to the end. Do you understand? And tell me where you ever see Tinubu then, now that he's the president, where he ever talks about something like the state of the country. Now let's go and watch the video. And please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. This is the only way to support, to recommend the video, so that YouTube can continue recommending the videos to others. Please subscribe.
The Nebraska is not one of the big states in America. Nebraska budget this year is $12 billion. Nebraska is the only state in America where you have what you can call a single legislature. They don't have Senate, and this is the only state in America. Nebraska have 49 legislators. They are paid $12,000 each. They are part-time. $12,000 each. Nobody buys them a car, nobody buys them anything. Nebraska budget, I've told you what it is. So they buy 600 million, the 600,000 is the entire thing they pay to their house, as salary and everything. Nebraska budget is about 3 times the actual expended budget of the entire Southeast and Northeast. If you put these 11 states together, Nebraska is 3 times that. These 11 states have over 270 something House members, costing over 16 billion annually for what they are doing for 183 million naira. That is the cost of our. The cost can go on and on. In France, the number 3 person had just resigned. All of you have read it and everything. Why? Because him and his wife was found in a restaurant on a Valentine's Day while he was speaker before he became minister, drinking champagne and eating lobster. Imagine in Nigeria, the French would have joined him. This is France where they make champagne, oh. Where they make the champagne. And on a special day, Valentine's Day. So the man said, okay, let me just, here, everybody would have joined the man for the best champagne. So let's talk about cost of governance. I can tell you having as the governor, nobody can tell me that our penny cannot do more than what it's doing today. And listen to where you have somebody who is owing a 2 months salary, he is owing only 12 and he wants to go again. And people are giving him an award. I watched it in TV. They said, you're owing 18 months salary. He said, no. It's just about 11, 12. And he wants to go again. I saw one recently who said, oh, he's not owing any salary. He's only owing pension and gratuity. You saw it. That's only pension and gratuity. He's not owing salary. And he's saying that he's the best governor. And the lists are there. We are debating whether we'll buy this type of car. We're going to buy this type of house. Or like Soludo said, this appointment is this and everything. My dear people, like Soludo has said and Bismarck has said, the world today is like, I would say it's on a fast lane, but the competition dynamics have changed. It's either you change or you die. It's that simple. You cannot continue to think you can compete today in a Formula 1 with a Molo driver. All of you end up in a lagoon. Professor Soludo, he showed clearly that the problem is politics. But for me, I was reading the Chinese ambassador's letter a few days ago. He said you have to look at where you are and be able to then say where you want to go. So for me really is that as Nigerians, as we look forward to what Professor Soludo said that we should do, look at tomorrow, it is important that we look at where we are today as well. And what are we going to do with the people that are in Nigeria today? And then from them we'll lay the foundation of that tomorrow. Today Nigeria is a home to the highest number of poor people living in any nation on earth. Every minute 6 Nigerians fall into poverty. Just a decade, a few years ago, China, with a population of 1.4 billion, and India, with a population of 1.3 billion, had more people living in extreme poverty than Nigeria. By the year 2000, China had 500 million people living in extreme poverty. But by just adopting and strict implementation of Millennium Development Goals, they've been able to pull 439 million people out of poverty. Just in 2012, India had 276 million people living in extreme poverty. Today, they have less than 76. Nigeria now have more people living in poverty than these 2 big countries combined. And that is our crisis. And this can be collaborated when you look at our own HDI. If you look at the summation of human development is Human Development Index. This is a measure of how a system is developing. And it's categorized into very high, medium, and low. And if you look at it today, Nigeria would have over 157 in position, is among the low. And if you look at the critical components of it, there's three of them. One is life expectancy. The global life expectancy today is 75 years. Nigeria is 54. 20-something years below. In fact, Nigeria is the third lowest. It is very clear. The second is education. Nigeria today is home for the highest number of out-of-school children, 13.2 million. In fact, if you look at what the minister is saying is correct, it should be about 15 million. And if you look at it, of all the countries I'm going to use to show an example of where we are and what we want to do, which is countries that are within the BRICS nation and countries that are within the Mint nation, Nigeria is the only country where you have such a low literacy rate of 51%. All of them are on the average of over 90%. Nigeria is 51. And this is because of our own gross lack of the impact of education, which is what the previous speakers were saying. Number three is per capita. Per capita, as the professors have mentioned, is a measure, is what you can call a measure of living, because it's a measure of individual wealth of any country. Nigeria, unfortunately, is one of those countries where the per capita has been falling for years now. In the recent IMF report, it says Nigerian per capita will actually continue to decline until about 2025. This is about poverty. If you look at security, Nigeria is now the third most insecure place to live on the surface of the earth. We are now behind Afghanistan and Syria, and with daily killings, banditry, and kidnapping, it is being speculated that Nigeria will soon overtake them. Our underemployment and unemployment is one of the worst in the world. People will tell you it's about 25, it's actually over 30%. And with over 22 million young people in their productive age doing nothing, it is very worrisome. And of course, concomitant with all these devices we are seeing today, whether it's banditry, whether it's mass killing, kidnapping, and all sorts of things. These are what we are going through as a country. Our debt is skeleton every day. If you recall, on May 1, I warned and cried about the debts we are piling. Because I was not an economist, because I hadn't had the opportunity of working in any of the Brentwood institutions, the Minister for Finance said, no, that we are going to spend our way out of recession. Today, all the economists at the Brentwood institutions are complaining about our debt with little or nothing to show for it. What is even worse, the debt is growing daily, and consequently, the service, what we require to service it, is worsening. And we are still piling up more debts. It's still growing. There are some economists and some Nigerians or some people who say, oh, our debt is not our problem, our debt to GDP is low, our debt to this is low. I don't disagree entirely with them. Our debt to GDP is low when you compare it to other developing nations whose GDP is actually in the region of 40-50. But it's not about debt, it's what you use the money to do that is the crisis. Yes, you can say our debt is low, but when you have little or nothing to show for it, then you have a problem because you're borrowing for consumption. We have countries, when we said about countries that are wonderful today and good today, one of them everybody cites is Singapore. Singapore debt to GDP is over 100%. Over 100%, that's 115% of their GDP is their debt. But what is the difference? If you go and see Singapore, in Constitution of Singapore, it says you can only borrow debt for capital project that will pay itself back. So all the debts they've borrowed over the years were invested. They are proper. They know where it is. Singapore today is building the biggest port under the sea that they will launch in 2050. That's where Soludo is saying we should go. So if they borrow money to do that, you go and borrow money for shaku shaku dance. You're finished. So that is a crisis we face as a nation. Because of the way we are borrowing money and what we are doing with it, it is not impacting on our growth. We are one country that is borrowing money, it's not impacting on our growth. It's not a part of per capita. Nobody has seen it. We didn't see the bridges and everything that it was used to for. So our debt is worsening and we need to do something about it. Today, we are the most stressful country. If you read the stress index, they said we are the most stressful. In fact, a famous doctor in Lagos told me that he has found out that all his patients, once they arrive Nigeria from overseas, their blood pressure goes up. And it's a record that he has. If you come to inequality, Nigerian inequality today is the worst. 157 over 157. We're the worst when it comes, if you look at the Oxfam report. In America, 1% of the richest Americans control 37% of their wealth. In China, the richest 1% control 35% of their wealth. In Indonesia, which I'm going to use for example, they control 47. In Nigeria, the richest 1% control 85% of the wealth. And nobody is working hard. All other countries I mentioned are working hard to lower this. In Nigeria, it's even worsening. And nobody is talking about it. Forbes recently described us as money-losing machine of Africa. Our stock market last year lost 18%. This year, it's lost 13%. Even when it's most shallow of all the countries I'm going to use, for example, within the BRICS country, no country where their stock market valuation is less than 200 billion, except Nigeria. If you look at all of them, Brazil is at almost a trillion. Russia is 575. India is 2 trillion. China is at 6 trillion. South Africa is $875 billion. And the second biggest economy. If you go to Mexico, it's 385. Indonesia is at 450. Nigeria is at 31 billion. And Turkey, the last nation, is at 200. So you have a crisis. Of course, you listen to what the recent seminar by the Sterling Bank, what the chief economist of World Bank said. He said we are living tragically on borrowed time. That's what he said about Nigeria. If you look at all this, you will see, like the previous speakers have said, we are living on a cliff. And we cannot continue with the present economic or political compass, whatever one you call it, which is not pointing in the right direction and would definitely lead to a collapse of this nation. And the earlier we do something, the better for everybody. For my little contribution, because previous speakers have mentioned a few of the things I want to mention, for my little contribution, I would dwell on just on 3 things and then conclude from there. For me, there's 3 things we need to deal with. And the issues are: number 1, issue of security. Number 2 is issue of education. And number 3 is issue of the economy, with emphasis in trying to solve our present under and unemployment. It is very critical. For security, I'm not going to make a lot of comments, but just to say that Nigeria needs to do something very quickly and drastically on our present security situation, which is questioning our corporate existence. The great number 1 job of any government in any society is to provide security of life and property. If you cannot do that, then the government does not exist. And today, what Nigeria needs most is investment, from local and from foreign direct investment. But nobody is going to invest in an unsecured place, no matter how profitable it is. The investor has to be alive to enjoy his profits. So there's no need preaching that, oh, it's 20% return, 30% return. I lived in England for a number of years, and I had a partner, very good man. Very good man. I'm sure Professor Ludo knows him very well, Mr. Harding. And he had a fixed deposit in a bank of about £5 million. And I was the chairman of a bank. And I said to him, they were paying him 2%. So it was earning £100,000. And at that time, banks were giving interest of 20-25%. And I went to him and said, Mr. Harden, since you said you're going to give them additional £1 million, why don't you give it to me? So that I can give you maybe 15%, more than they pay for this 5. He said to me, okay, we'll go for dinner and talk about it. And he took me to dinner. And when we finished, he told me, Peter, let me tell you, peace of mind is included in this 2%. You can keep your thoughts. That he has planned his life. That he has planned his life on this 2%. He doesn't want the 15. I can keep the 15. And that is the foreign investor you want to attract. Because he needs to have peace to enjoy his 1% and everything. And that's it. So it is critical that we know we need to provide security. The second thing I need to talk about is the issue of education. It's been repeated by previous speakers and everything. It's just to add. Every empirical studies have shown today that the more you can invest in education, the better your economy and society. Countries that are doing well today are countries that have invested and continue to invest in education. It's as simple as ABC. It's not something you need. So the more you invest in education, the education investment is not an expense. It is an investment. And if you look at all the countries that want to compare us with today, you could see it. Among all the BRICS and MINT countries, they all invest at least 4% of their GDP on education. Nigeria, tragically, our budget is low, yet our budget for education is even worse. If you look at all of them, if you talk about the BRICS, you talk about Brazil, India, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the MINT nations are Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey. Of all these 9 countries, only Nigeria, one is that our budget is low, which is a discussion for another day. Only Nigeria is where you find the budget for education below 4%. It's a sorry state that is at below 1%. I'll give you an example. China, today, with a population of 1.4 billion, their annual budget is, of course, they will be mentioned here that their GDP is about 13%, 13 trillion. Their annual budget is 3.8 trillion. Their budget for education is $590 billion. That's what China puts in education every year. More than 4% of their GDP, more than 15% of their budget. Consequently, for UNESCO, China has 95% literacy rate. The other country I'm going to use is Indonesia. Because of want of time, I want to use the best performing country in the BRICS and the best performing in the MINT. It's Indonesia. Indonesia is a country of 260 million people. Their budget is $178 billion, and they spend $40 billion on education. About 4% of their GDP, and over about 20% of their budget. Nigeria, with 200 million people, our budget is 28 billion, which is low. But even worse, our budget for education is $2 billion. It's a crisis. To even illustrate or explain it to you more, let me use a country closer home. It might not be a good example today. South Africa. South Africa, but we have to face the reality of where we find ourselves. South Africa is supposed to be the second biggest economy in Africa. The budget of annual budget of South Africa is 4 times our budget, and their budget is 110 billion, ours is 28. What is even worse, their budget for education is $17 billion. In the past 10 years, Nigerian budget for education at the federal level is 4.4 trillion. If you change it today by 305, which is the exchange rate, is $14.4 billion. So our 10 years budget in education is not up to 1 year budget of South Africa in education. And that is where we find ourselves. So we have to face that reality and invest in this critical component. The consequence is that we have 13 million out of school children and everything. Everybody will say to you, where are you going to find money Because that's what they always say. When he says, where are you going to find money for education? My question is, tell me any of these countries, any other country in the world that pay what we pay for subsidy of fuel. Tell me any other country. And what is the impact of the subsidy on our economy? In the past 10 years, Nigeria, like I said before, has spent 4.4 trillion on education. Let me even ask another critical component of development. When you talk about life expectancy, you talk about health, primary health. Our budget for health in the past 10 years is 2.7 trillion. Both of them is just about 7 trillion combined. And that is what we budgeted in the past 10 years. In the same period, we spent about 10 trillion for subsidy. And I can tell you, 75% to 80% of the money that is spent on subsidy is actually, let me not say what happened to the money, but all of you know. It can be better. It's misappropriation. It can be removed. If this money was spent on education and health, education would have received at least 2.5 times what was budgeted. The same thing for health. So instead of having about $15 billion for health, we would have had $37.5 billion. Instead of having $9 billion for health, we would have had 22.5. So education would have had 37.5 and health would have had 22.5. Over that. And if that money was properly utilized, I can tell you it would have impacted better on our economy today, on our per capita today, and to the country. But that money wasn't invested. You can guess what happened to that money. Or even like people say, where are you going to find the money? Recently you saw the report that 1.6 trillion was stolen as an oil theft in 2016. And in 2017, another 1 trillion was stolen. So if you combine these two, it is 2.6 trillion, which is in 2 years, which is the amount you budgeted for health in 10 years. So where are these thieves? Let all of us go and look for them. So these are the issues that I need to bring. That is where, so because people will say, where will you find the money? To go further, let me even talk about the issue of the economy. Let me leave education. I've told you that we can fund education, we can make it better. Let's look at the economy. With emphasis, like I said, on issue of underemployment and unemployment. Everybody knows that all various studies, and I'm happy that our famous economists here, nobody can talk about those brilliant economists we have in this country today without calling Professor Sukuma Soludo and people like Bismarck. They are among the best we have. And I'm sure they know that when you talk about the economy, you must talk about the issue of underemployment and unemployment. It is the greatest contributor to building a strong economy. If people don't have jobs, you have terrorism, you have banditry, you have all sorts of characters. If they remove any of us here from having a job, we are different things. It's as simple as ABC. So you have to deal with that. And when you talk about the issue of employment of any nation today, whether it's China that we are celebrating, whether it's any other country within the BRICS nation or the MINT nation, like I said before, I still use China and Indonesia to show an example. All of them, everybody knows that there's a direct connection between issue of employment creation, growth per capita, and growth of overall economy with your support for micro, small, medium entrepreneur. Professor Gupta has said that Nigeria DNA is entrepreneurship. And I believe that. But that DNA is not being supported. What has happened is that we've abandoned this greatest engine of creation of labor, unemployment, without any support. And if we want to solve that, it is not a sophisticated thing. If you go to China today, using the example of the two countries I said before, If you go to China today, 92% of the companies are MSMEs. 92%. They produce or contribute 60% of their GDP. China GDP is 13 trillion, 60% is 7.8 trillion, which is 20 times Nigerian GDP. That's what this sector is contributing. They contribute over 60% of the entire industrial output, and they contribute, in terms of jobs, they're employing over 70% of Chinese people. 800 million people are employed in China. 70% is 560 million. That is what MSMEs are doing in China. And government is aggressively supporting this sector. If you go there, you will see that overall, I will show you the disparity when I finish telling you what is happening with them and what is happening here. China today is determined to create 10 million jobs annually from 2015 to 2020. In fact, in 2018, by the first 6 months, they've created 7.2 million, which is over 40% of their target. And that's what they're doing. China has unemployment rate of 3.7%. If you go to Indonesia, which is the fastest growing in the Mint nation, it is a similar situation. 97% of the companies in Indonesia are MSMEs. And they are creating over 90% of the jobs. Indonesia, they are producing 60%, over 60% of the GDP. The GDP of Indonesia is 1.2 trillion. 60% is 7.2 trillion. It's 720 billion, which actually is twice our GDP. They have a population, as you know, of 250 million. 145 million are employed. MSMEs are producing 90% of that, which is 125 million. So you could see easily what these people are doing in other nations. And this can be done. It's not a rocket science. What are they doing? The government have a ministry of small, medium enterprises and are supporting them. People will ask you here, where are you going to get the money? How are you going to fund it, Peter? How are you going to support them? I was a businessman in United Kingdom. Not my country, not to have anything to do with it. I came out of school, started business. My county supported me by giving me grants. The government gave me grants. In America today, in China, everywhere, government is giving people grants, support, and everything. So people say, what do we need? I said, you need aggressively support this sector to unleash what they can do in Nigeria. How do you do it? People say, oh, there's no money. We have borrowed a total of 28 trillion naira, $90 billion. If we had devoted a quarter of that, 7 trillion, $23 billion to supporting that DNA Professor Kupta mentioned. Before I go into that, let me give you an example of what I experienced when the recent conference I attended, Tony Elumelu Foundation. The CEO of that foundation, Ms. Ifeanyi Ugochukwu, said that for every entrepreneur they supported with $5,000, he created 20 jobs after 1 year. Speakers after speaker came and supported that position. Now, if we had taken away 25% of this money, $23 billion, and decided to support our entrepreneurs with grants, we would have given it to 4,600,000 entrepreneurs. Assuming only 75% of them, which is 3,450,000, had created just 50% of the job. Ms. Ifeanyi has said, instead of 20, they created 10. They would have created 34,500,000 jobs. If we had 34,500,000 people employed today, we won't be talking about 98 people living under poverty. It is very simple. It's not a rocket science. We would have been able to deal with this and all that. What you hear today in Nigeria is that, oh, revenue to GDP is low. Where are you going to get it? Are you going to tax people who are unemployed or businesses that are collapsing? If you want more revenue, everybody knows how you can get more revenue. Reboot your economy. Support those who are living in extreme poverty to come over this side and you get revenue. It's simple. We have today taxable adults of 20 million when it should be more. If you want more, you just support them. Eligible workforce in Nigeria is 150 million. Those who are employed are just about 75 million. So you have 40 million people that are not doing anything. Support them. So stop talking about revenue to GDP. Let's talk about how do you now get these people on this side. If the more China put people out of poverty, the more revenue they received. To show you how bad it is and what the China is doing, if you go to our banks today, the total credit of all the banks, loans they've given out, is 15.5 trillion. Out of that, 4,000 companies or thereabout have taken 13.3. Call it about 3.3 billion each. The entire MSME is 35 million. The entire loan to them is 500 billion naira, which is about 3% of 15,000 each. So they cannot contribute what their counterparts in China is contributing. In China, out of overall 30 trillion debts, MSMEs control 25% of it, which is 7.5 trillion. The consequence is that if you look at their tax revenue, they do not just produce 60% of GDP or 70% of unemployment, they also contribute 50% of the tax revenue. China funds its budget from tax revenue. 80% of their budget is funded by tax revenue. 80% is about 3 trillion, and MSME provides 50% of it, which is 1.5 trillion. In Nigeria, the opposite is the case, because these people are just living from hand to mouth. This year alone, about 10 million, half of this year, 10 million accounts became not operational again in Nigeria. Because you know why? People only open account now to beg for money. So if it is shown that Nigerians withdraw money paid into the account faster than any other country in the world, because these people are just once they beg you for money, you pay it in. By the time the money comes, it's already been withdrawn, because that is what it's meant for, to go and eat. And that is the crisis we face. So people tell you, oh, we want tax to GDP or this. If you want that, the more you put people out of poverty, the more revenue you get. It's a very simple thing. It's like a bank account. You cannot continue to withdraw without paying anything in. No, you have to. And that comes to what Bismarck, Soludo, everybody is saying, that the government needs to come and decide that this is where we're going to go. It's not how much you have, it's what you do with it that counts. Nigerians think they will just win lottery one day, or like, sorry, we're in a church, that will pray one day and God will solve the problem. He was going to solve it. I told my uncle, I finished praying and said, through Jesus Christ, your son. My uncle told me that he has passed the son, that he needs to see the father. So that's where we are. That's where we found ourselves. Today what you hear is revenue to GDP. Can we talk about cost of governance to GDP? That is the problem. You cannot continue. Prophet Soludo has just told you how a governor, the wife had to work for them to be able to buy car. RAV4, yeah. You could see it. That is the situation everywhere. The cost of governance in Nigeria is unacceptable. It's the most expensive anywhere in the world. Just to use another example from the same America to show you, The Nebraska is not one of the big states in America. Nebraska budget this year is $12 billion. At 305 is 3,660 billion naira. Nebraska is the only state in America where you have what you can call a single legislature. They don't have Senate, and this is the only state in America. Nebraska have 49 legislators. They are paid $12,000 each. They are part-time. $12,000 each. Nobody buys them a car, nobody buys them anything. Nebraska budget, I've told you what it is. So they buy 600 million, the 600,000 is the entire thing they pay to their house, and salary and everything. Which you use 305 is 183 million naira. Nebraska budget is about 3 times the actual expended budget of the entire southeast and northeast.
Now, after you don't watch the video to the end, what do you think? Now, I said something. Have you ever seen where Tinubu or anybody in Tinubu's government will come out like this and detail the state of the country, the problem that is before us today, the state of the economy, right? Tinubu himself explained to you like this and how he plans to tackle it and how he's tackling the problem. Have you seen Tinubu once use any like figures, giving you statistics, figures like this? Rather than what they do is the country is getting better. Things are getting better. Price of foods and services are coming down. That's what it tells you. Nobody will ever tell you the statistics. All the APC coming to social media, coming to different media houses to speak. When you ask them about figure, statistics, they don't have it. They don't tell you. They only tell you that things are getting better. Especially any one of them who happens to go to Arise News and Rufai. His big question or ask questions by Rufai. Like you ask them because Rufai is very he's very strict with these people. He just want facts. He said, give me empirical facts. Give me the figure, the statistics. Not just come here and tell us things are getting better. On what level? On what basis? Where were we 2 years ago when you took over? Where are we now? Give us the number. It is the number that will determine if you are doing well or not. It is possible to do everything is going well, but you say things are getting better. We go to the market, the price of food and services are not coming down. They are still on a high side compared to 2 years ago. So somebody who did things, no book, he's telling you, using different countries, giving you example, what they did, how they got it wrong. So he has studied, been to these countries. He's not traveling to this country to go and enjoy himself. To just any country he visits, he must learn 1 or 2 things about their economy, about their GDP, how they are progressing. He must meet people, officials in the government. He asks questions. Tinubu is just going in the name of, I want to attract foreign investors, come and invest in your country. What are you doing to attract them? It is easy. Even if you go there, they can promise you heaven and earth. But the reality is clear. It's on ground that your country is not doing well. Insecurity won't allow them to come. And you don't need international. We ourselves, we can solve the problem of this country in terms of whatever you could think of. Insecurity, it can't be international. Insecurity is local. You can only fight the problem of insecurity locally. Food productions we are talking about, we need to invest. That is it. There is no 2 ways about it. Those people you want the international to come, they are coming to invest. We have the money, the resources to invest our own here. All the ones we are invested before, they closed down because of bad policies. They closed down, they shut down. Some of them relocated out of this country. We have since Tinubu took over power, we have over 1,000 small scale, medium businesses. They shut down. They shut down. What are you supposed to do? Empower these medium scale businesses. Empower them. Give them loan, affordable loan that they can be able to pay. All of them, they'll go into business. They'll go and be doing something productive. Before you know, they are contributing to the country. You just focus on going international. Who is going to come and invest his billions of dollars into our economy that is not that the country is not conducive for them to come. Insecurity other of the day. People who understand the terrain, who could at least be able to manage with you. You are making your policies difficult for those people to operate, to do their businesses. You say it doesn't matter because their businesses are too small. You don't want them in your country. You don't want somebody who is going to invest billions of dollars. That's what will quickly grow your economy for you. No, that's a waste of time. How far? How many of these multi-million dollars businesses are going to invest in Nigeria under Tinubu as a result of he traveling around the world, trying to attract foreign investors? How many of them? It's lie upon lie, lie upon lie. Now see somebody who is telling you he doesn't need to be the president before he knows what to do. He already knows what is wrong in the system, what he's going to do, how to correct it. And if these people are even smart enough, they would have been tapping into this, what he's saying. But you can't compare original with photocopy. That is the thing. The thing is telling you this is what I want to do until you don't know how I plan to go about it. That is the problem. Anyways, what do you think? Please share this video. Very important. Please share this video and please subscribe to this YouTube channel.